Hey there, modern homesteader. I hope you're doing so good today. I am on my way to go pick up some raw milk to make some yogurt. I just had to pull over because the sky is just so gorgeous today. We have had a crazy amount of cloudy weather, lots of rain, so it's just really refreshing to see the beautiful clouds, the blue sky. It is so blue today. Just had to share that with you. Anyway, I'm gonna go pick up this milk and I will be right back to share the yogurt making process. See you soon. Hey, I am back. I have the raw milk here. I would like to let you know in this recipe you can also sub out for breast milk or 2% milk from the store. Some things that you are going to need are a fine mesh strainer, a bowl. You will need some cheesecloth. I prefer to buy a large piece of organic unbleached cotton, and I sew around to the size squares that I want and I cut them out. You can reuse them for the longest time. You're not wasting your money by having to purchase new cheesecloth every time, and you don't have to sacrifice your health for any possible chemicals that might be in there. You will also need a scale. The sensitivity minimum on this is 2 grams. You will need a pot, a thermometer, a spatula, and most importantly, you will need a yogurt starter. I will link this in the description, but you can also use a yogurt that you already have in the fridge. Now, let's get over to the stove. You're going to go ahead and pour the milk in. Alright, we're going to turn this up to a medium heat. I have the thermometer in, I'm going to turn it on. And we're going to slowly let it go up to 180, pretty much undisturbed. You can stir every once in a while, but you don't want to incorporate too many air bubbles. While that's warming up, I went ahead and preset the oven to 180 because after this reaches 180, we will want to hold it at that temperature for half an hour. And the easiest way, in my opinion, to do that is to put it in the oven. That way it's consistent and stable the whole time, and you don't have to worry about the temperature fluctuating here in the pot. All right, so we have reached 180. I'm going to give this a quick, gentle stir. You do not want to disrupt the bottom of it because there might be some scalded milk at the base of the pan. So we'll just give it a nice gentle stir. You do not want to put the thermometer in the oven. Okay. Now we are going to pop this in again for 30 minutes, uncovered. Okay, 30 minutes set. The timer has gone off. It's been half an hour. We're going to go ahead and take it out. An explanation why you want this to go at 180 for half an hour is because the heat restructures the protein in the milk, enabling it to become a nice creamy thick yogurt. You see here, there is a bit of a skin that forms. You want to scrape that off. So we're going to bunch it up. Okay. And then we'll fish it out. Now that we've got our milk out of the oven and we've fished out the skin on top, we're going to transfer it over to a glass bowl or metal. We're going to get our thermometer, plug that in, and you want this to slowly come down to 110 degrees. So we'll sit here. And you can stir it, but you do not want to incorporate any air bubbles at this point because air bubbles are the enemy to a good yogurt. I remember the first time that I made this, I was whisking to get the temperature down, and the yogurt ended up curdling, and it was really gross. Turns out it was due to the air bubbles. So just be very gentle with your stirring. We have a little sous chef. You smell that milk, Finn? Huh? Yeah. Let's see what's going on here. The temperature has come down to 111, which I'm fine with. 1 degree is not going to hurt anything. So what I have here, the directions say to use 1.5 grams of the starter, but since I'm using raw milk, which contains all of its own bacteria, this does need to overpower that. So we are going with almost 2 times. I'm going for about 2.5 grams versus 1.5 grams. So we're going to go ahead and stir this in. We're going to be very gentle when we stir it, but you also want to stir it nice and thoroughly. If it settles or if it doesn't dissolve completely, you will have chunks of yogurt versus a consistent yogurt throughout. So it'll slowly dissolve. I'm going to make sure we get everything out of here. Don't want to waste any of this goodness. I still see a few flakes. It can take a minute to mix in all the way. All right. I'd say that looks good. So on to the next step, which is going to be your method for keeping this warm. It needs to maintain a temperature of 110 degrees for roughly 5 to 7 hours. It can just depend on how much starter you used, what kind of cultures were in before you added your starter. I would also like to note, if you are using any milk from the grocery store, first, you cannot use skim milk. Second, if you are using a 2% or a whole milk, you only need to use 1.5 grams of this starter versus the additional starter that I've used here. If you are using breast milk, you will also want to do the 2.5 grams because breast milk also contains its own unique bacteria, just like raw milk does. I am going to use the dehydrator. It has a temperature setting. I'm going to put it at 110 for about 6 hours, and then we're going to check on it. So let's go over to the dehydrator. I am going to cover it with some damp cheesecloth. Again, this is the organic unbleached cotton cheesecloth that I got in a big sheet. I sewed squares into it and cut them out. It is a very super fine fabric. It works great. I'm going to put that over. And the temperature is set at 110 degrees. I already have some herbs drying in here. We're just going to shuffle some things around. It should all be able to fit in just fine. And the yogurt goes. We're going to start off with a time of, let's say, 5.5 hours, and then we'll come and check in on it. And if you're interested in where I got this dehydrator, it is absolutely amazing. Drop a comment and I'll share some information on it. It has been just wonderful. I started off with a kind of stacked plastic dehydrator last year and it was a nightmare. Everything in the bottom would get really dry, everything in the top would remain, you know, just squishy and floppy, and I had to shuffle things around a lot. It was just a mess. So this little investment has very much been worth it. All right, it's been about 5.5 hours now, and I went to check it. You will know that your yogurt is ready to pull out whenever you tilt the bowl, and it pulls away from those edges. So you want it to separate and kind of slide down the edge of the bowl whenever you tilt it. And the texture should also seem similar to a panna cotta. So in the next part of the video, we are going to get to the straining portion where we are going to pour it into cheesecloth in our strainer, which is going to make the yogurt thicker and separate it from any excess whey. What we are going to do now is we're going to strain this yogurt. So I'm going to take the double layer of cheesecloth and put it in my wire mesh strainer over a bowl. Now I'm using this bowl just for this moment because once I put the yogurt in here, I'm going to pop this back in the big bowl. So I just need something temporary here. Okay. Going to grab a fork here and something to catch the skin with. Now, as this is sitting in the fridge, also in the dehydrator, or whatever method you're using to keep this warm, there is likely going to be a skin on the top of it. Actually, let's see if I can show you. There's a little fat skin there. So we are going to remove that. Here's that skin I was talking about. I have a little dish here that I'm going to use for the skin. Gently scrape it off. You don't want to scrape into the yogurt. And this is really just the fat that has separated and dried on the very top. I'm going to get as much of it off as you can. It's not going to hurt. It doesn't taste bad. The only issue that will arise with this is you will get a little piece of something firm in your yogurt. It's not the end of the world. Okay, I'd say that's about all of it. So now we are going to put it into this cheesecloth strainer. Make sure the cheesecloth is centered in there. And we are just going to dump it in very gently. I probably should have done it facing you. Sorry about that. So you'll see it's pretty thick in there, especially at the very bottom. That is exactly what we want. I am going to grab a spoon to scrape out the rest of what's in there. Okay. So you're just going to empty out the rest of this. Look at that nice thick yogurt. And do not worry if it looks a little chunky right now. That's just because it is nice and set. So after we do all the straining, we'll give it a good mix and it'll knock out any lumps in there. Okay, now you can choose to rinse this out if you want, but we're just going to be straining the whey into it, which is pretty much yogurt in itself. So I don't have a problem with just popping the strainer right back in there. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, look at that. We already have some whey in there. It's a little milky. Most of the time it'll be nice and clear. But what we have here is some initial runoff. So whenever I was scraping off the skin, some of the yogurt mixed in with the whey that was on the top. So when I strained it, you have some yogurty, milky whey. but the rest of the whey in there should be nice and like a clear yellow green color. So we are going to pop that in the fridge. You can let it set for an hour, you can let it set for 5 hours. You are just going to wait until it is about the consistency that you want. And I'm actually going to cover this. I'm going to cover this with good old press and seal. Hi, sweetie. Just a moment, just a moment. Mama will be with you in just a moment, okay? Yeah. All right, I'll be back with you after this has had some time to strain. All right, please excuse the wet hair. You know, in a busy life, you have to do what you can when you can with what you have. So here we are. So this yogurt has been setting for about 2 hours. It's looking nice and thick. So I'm going to lift this up. And there is a bunch of whey in the bottom, which is amazing. What you can do with the whey, don't discard it. You can use it as a starter for future yogurt making. You can use it in smoothies, which is my favorite. And there's also endless other recipes out there that you can look into. It has a lot of uses. It's full of wonderful probiotics and a lot of protein. So that's always a good thing. Now this yogurt, it is just a beautiful thick consistency. It's right where I want it. If you want a Greek yogurt, then you will keep straining this until it reaches your desired consistency, okay? So I'm just going to scoop this all out into my glass Tupperware here, and this will store for quite a long time. I would say about 2 weeks. And you can use this yogurt for new yogurt making. So you'll have a endless kind of chain supply of yogurt as long as you use some before it spoils. Just looks so great. This really, I mean, you can't beat it. It is so much better than store-bought yogurt. So much better. Especially with raw milk. Now, if you can't find raw milk, that's okay. You can always use milk from the store. I'm just partial to raw milk. Ever since I tried it, it's, you know, you can't go back. Okay, we're almost there. Looks like I picked out the perfect size Tupperware for this. I love when that happens. Almost done. All right, now I'm going to give you a close-up of the yogurt and the whey, so you have some idea what it looks like. I'll run a spoon through it for consistency so you can have an eye on that too. Okay, this is the beautiful yogurt. Now those lumps that you see in there, they will whisk right out. There is no reason to worry about those. Look at that. Beautiful.